So, Alan Alda. That's a name that some people know and some people don't. He was in the movie Crimes and Misdemeanors with Woody Allen. There's, he is 100% known for portraying Benjamin Hawkeye Pierce. A truly, for the time, very long dramedy mash. Now, lo and behold, Donald Sutherland himself portrayed Hawkeye in the 1970 movie. And this was, of course, based on Richard Hooker's book. And Hooker is just a pen name. I forgot what his real name was. Who wrote about his time in the Korean War of a mobile army surgical hospital unit. That's a mouthful. And it was the launching point for many people. Sally, Elliot Gold, Sally Hedgeberger, Robert Duvall, and many, many other people who, had some fame and others who didn't. So it's a good black comedy and look at the absurdity of war. And the original artwork features two fingers like this that were kind of like for like legs and stuff like that. Yeah, something like this. And yeah, I mean it's like the TV show made history with what was that? 80 million, like a very large number of people watched a 2.5 hour climax. I did. It's fantastic, but this movie started all. It's a very, like I said, a very dark comedy about war and what we do, like what you do to maintain your sanity. So, recently, like very knowledgeable doctor, Hawkeye Pierce gets transferred to the 407 7th, and he's got a couple of friends with him. A guy with a mustache named McIntyre, and also Trapper, and all the hijinks that ensue throughout the unit, and what they, like I said, what they do to maintain their sanity. What I like about this is that it's like it feels linear, but there's also a lot of really funny stuff going on. Because you get the much more cynical, much more straight-laced Frank Burns, who isn't nearly as, I guess, infantile as he was in the series. Robert Duvall does a good job playing that, just the guy you just dislike. Always like saying his prayers before bed and being very straight-laced, not drinking, and refusing to give into the demands, the absurdity that his bunkmates go through. So, but of course, one of the more funnier scenes is when him and Margaret Houlihan are thinking that they're alone in a tent. Lo and behold, a microphone gets placed under, and then is broadcast throughout the entire gosh darn camp of like, oh, hit me with your hot lips, Houlihan, says Frank Burns, ergo the song right there. And it is just so funny, just the laughter and everything else. And then next day they get to him and it's like, oh, how did she moan? She's like, oh, or was it more like, oh. He's like, shut up and everything else. And eventually he can't take anymore, and then he is just carted off with a straitjacket because of just the insanity of his fellow medical crew. And there's just like some na hey goodbye scenes. There's a part where they think there's one doctor named what was his name, Painless Walt Whitman, not Whitman. He thinks that he's gay because he couldn't achieve an erection. And just thinking, he's really was going to commit suicide. Ergo, part also the theme of suicide is painless. So ultimately, it's like they get him into like a coffin and everything, take him to an officers club, and then lo and behold, there's a nurse who's saying, just be with him just for a little bit. It's like, oh, this is so ridiculous. And then it zooms out and some angelic music plays. And they cut to the next morning where he's feeling really good. It's like I had a really good sleep last night, and And then I also woke, and this nurse also woke up right beside me. So yeah, he was pretty good. Yeah, there's no clinger in this, which is like he's only meant to be a one-shot character, but Jamie Farber portrayed him so gosh darn well. Of course, there's also the kind of serious side, with the surgeries being performed, where we get to see kind of some visceral stuff, some blood, a rib cage. They talk about like sutures and clamps and stuff like that, and just the superior and inferior vena cava and things like that. So this movie really does get quite a lot of stuff going on, and you just look at it and you're like, dang, it does the mixture well of the it's more comedy focused is what I've seen here. I mean, it's like yeah, a little bit of the themes going on with the a little bit more of the themes going on with talking about the medical stuff and stuff like that. It's like 90% comedy, but also 10% kind of a anti-war statement as well. So it's like just they don't get philosophical or anything like that, but I guess it's just a way of how they relieve pressure, and I guess how strict the army can be. But at the same time, when you're performing surgery, what, at least 12 hours a day or something like that, you're standing on your feet and everything else, it does get, you need to relieve stress somehow. Ultimately, there's this general who comes in and is like saying, yeah, Houlihan won't even let us have a football team. We'll only let you have a football team. It's like we have, what's the word, like, $5,000 or more 1950s money that, say, hey, it's like, screw Houlihan. Yeah, we're going to go and have a game. Then they bring in this, I'm guessing another character from the novel, Spear Chucker Jones, and, it's like, they don't bring him until the second half, but ultimately, they win, and it is such a gosh darn good way, because it's like, it's a low-ranking game at 18 to 16. 18, of course, being for the 4077, so it was like, they make their money. Yeah, it's like I said, the movie builds, and we get to see some of South Korea. We even get to see a little bit of Japan, where, in my personal favorite, they managed to put some. They managed to get this very tight-lipped, intense, mustached colonel, and they take provocative pictures with, I think, what was that, a couple of geishas or something like that in Japan, and they say, hey, if you don't freaking. He's like, we could just as easily incriminate you with these photos, so just let us do our own thing, otherwise these photos will be leaked. And it was just like a rapid succession of photos. I'm just looking at them like, and I thought that the TV characters are bad. They do not pull any punches here. I mean, even playing golf inside his office, I'm just like, wow. I love them both, but just the intensity of that Sutherland and Elliot Gould do is just like, jeez. And yes, I was introduced to Donald Sutherland through the Hunger Games, so there's that. But yeah, most of this movie has aged well. They do say the word, anyways, there's like one or two references, like how there's like this certain baseball league, and it would start with an N, there's that word said a couple times that's not done in like a racist manner. It's just part of the jargon back in both the 50s and the 70s. So there's that, and maybe some of the women are kind of treated more like eye candy, I guess is the word, especially when we want to find out if Houlihan's hair is naturally blonde or she uses hair dye. They come down with that scene, you know which one I'm talking about, where they reveal herself. Yeah, that was interesting to see. I will say that. So, and maybe it could be a little bit too coarse for some people. Then again, when you're dealing with being 3 miles from the front line and having to perform a lot of surgery, you need to relieve some stress, if you will. So, it's like at roughly 2 hours, it does not overstay its welcome, and it feels like a gosh darn good introduction, if you will, that one should watch before the TV series. You know, the TV series made history and everything like that. The only actor who appeared in both the TV series and the movie was Gary Berghoff, who played Radar O'Reilly. So that was very interesting to see. But yeah, if you want like a military movie, yes, this is a military movie from the medical perspective and what one does to show the absurdities of war and how they relieve stress and everything like that, then I highly recommend that you watch MASH.